Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive.
Always. What are we tackling today?
Well, it's something that I think we can all relate to, at least to some degree. Breakups.
Oh, breakups. A timeless topic for sure.
Yeah. But with a bit of a modern twist, we're specifically looking at digital breakups.
Yes. The whole is it ever okay to break up with someone via text debate?
Exactly. It's like a whole new layer of complexity has been added to an already emotionally charged situation.
No kidding. So, where are we getting our insights from today?
Well, we're pulling from a really interesting episode of the Breakup Breakdown podcast. They had both a relationship expert, Dr. Mia, and a communication coach, Alex, on to discuss this very topic.
Seems like a good mix of perspectives. So, what's the consensus? Is it ever okay to break up with someone digitally?
Well, it's definitely not a simple yes or no answer. It seems like the general feeling is that face-to-face is still the gold standard, especially for serious relationships.
That makes sense. You'd want to give someone that level of respect and consideration, especially if you've invested a lot of time and energy into the relationship.
Right. Like, imagine getting a text that says, "We're over."
Yeah.
It feels so cold and impersonal.
It does. And Dr. Mia, the relationship expert, really emphasizes that in-person breakups allow for a genuine exchange of emotions. You can actually see the other person's reaction, offer comfort, and have a more nuanced conversation.
Which is so important in that kind of situation. You need that space to process what's happening, to ask questions, to maybe even get some closure.
Exactly. And Dr. Mia also points out that being there in person allows you to offer and receive emotional support, which can be so crucial during a breakup.
Totally. Sometimes you just need someone to be there, to hug you, to listen without judgment. That kind of support can make a world of difference when you're feeling heartbroken.
Absolutely. But the breakup breakdown folks don't pretend it's always so black and white. They do acknowledge that there are situations where going digital might be the safer or more practical route.
Okay, that's where it gets interesting. So, under what circumstances would they say digital is the way to go?
Well, safety is a big one. If the relationship is toxic or abusive, a text could be a way to get out without putting yourself at risk.
Right. You can't expect someone to have a calm, face-to-face conversation with someone who's been mistreating them.
Exactly. Self-preservation has to be the priority in those situations. And Alex, the communication coach, brought up another interesting point. They argue that for casual dating, a text might be perfectly acceptable.
Oh, that makes sense. It's like different rules apply depending on the level of commitment in the relationship.
Right. If it's just been a few dates, a text might not feel as dismissive or disrespectful.
It's all about context, I guess.
Yeah,
And they also mentioned long-distance relationships, where sometimes digital communication is your only option, even for breaking up.
it is. Sometimes geography just makes an in-person conversation impossible.
So this is making me rethink the whole digital is always bad stance. Is it possible that a well-written text, or even a video call, could actually be more personal in some cases?
Hmm. Interesting question. Like, maybe it allows for a more thoughtful, heartfelt goodbye than a rushed or awkward in-person conversation.
Exactly. Maybe it's less about how you say it and more about what you actually say and the level of care you put into it.
I think that's a really good point. It's not just about the medium, it's about the message.
Right. But even if digital breakups might be okay in certain situations, we can't ignore the potential downsides.
You're right. We should definitely explore those downsides too.
So we've been talking about how digital breakups, while sometimes unavoidable, can lack that personal touch.
It's true. There's something about a text or an email that can make the whole thing feel, well, less significant.
You hit the nail on the head. And it's funny because the Breakup Breakdown podcast didn't really delve into the social media aspect of it all.
Oh, social media, that's a whole other beast.
Right. Imagine finding out you've been dumped because your ex changed their relationship status or posted some cryptic song lyrics.
Ouch. Yeah, that's gotta sting. Publicly airing those kinds of things can be brutal.
It feels almost like a betrayal on top of the heartbreak. And you know what's ironic?
What's that?
We talk about digital breakups being impersonal, but then there's this weird pressure to share everything online.
It's true. Sometimes it feels like we're performing our lives for an audience instead of actually living them.
Exactly. And I think that can make it even harder to deal with something as personal and painful as a breakup. You're not only dealing with your own emotions, you're also navigating this public perception of your relationship.
And the potential for drama that comes with that. Hurt feelings, misunderstandings, rumors. It can quickly spiral out of control.
It's almost like we need a whole new set of etiquette rules for handling breakups in the digital age.
I agree. We need to be more mindful of how our online actions might affect others, especially when it comes to something as sensitive as a breakup.
So how can we do that? What are some practical tips for handling those digital goodbyes with more grace and sensitivity?
Well, first and foremost, if you're the one initiating the breakup, think carefully about whether a digital message is truly the best way to go. If it's a serious relationship, try your best to have that conversation in person, even if it's uncomfortable.
But what about those situations where an in-person breakup just isn't safe or possible, like in cases of abuse or long-distance relationships?
Right, those are important exceptions. In those cases, a digital breakup might be the only option, but you can still do it in a way that's respectful and considerate.
So how do you do that? How do you break up with someone digitally without making them feel like they're just getting tossed aside?
Well, I think the key is to choose your words carefully. Think about how your message will be received and what kind of impact it might have on the other person. Avoid using harsh language or blaming them for the breakup.
It's kind of like the golden rule, right? Treat others how you'd want to be treated, even if it's a breakup.
Exactly. And it's also important to be clear and concise about your reasons for ending the relationship. Don't leave things open-ended or vague.
So no cryptic song lyrics or vague allusions to needing space.
Right. It's always best to be direct and honest, even if it's difficult. And if possible, give the other person the space to respond and process the information before you share it publicly.
It's about respecting their privacy and giving them the dignity of handling the situation in their own way.
Absolutely. And once the breakup is out in the open, try to be mindful of what you're posting on social media. Avoid posting things that might be hurtful or embarrassing for your ex, like photos with a new partner or cryptic messages that could be interpreted as being about them.
It's almost like the breakup doesn't give you a free pass to be insensitive or disrespectful.
I think that's a great way to put it. Even though the relationship is over, you still need to treat each other with a basic level of decency.
So it seems like there's no easy answer here. The digital age has definitely added a whole new layer of complexity to breakups.
It has. But I think we've uncovered some valuable insights today about how to navigate those complexities with more grace and sensitivity.
I agree. And it makes me wonder, now that we've dissected digital breakups, where do we go from here? How do we hold on to those genuine human connections in a world that's increasingly driven by digital interactions?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Like, are we trading real connection for convenience?
It's a valid concern. We're so plugged in all the time.
Right. And then we get to these big emotional moments like a breakup, and suddenly those digital tools feel very inadequate.
They can be. But I don't think it means technology is inherently bad for our relationships.
So how do we find that sweet spot? Using tech without letting it take over.
I think it boils down to being intentional. Like anything else, we have to make conscious choices about how we use it.
So what would that look like in practice?
Well, for starters, we can be more mindful of how much time we're spending online.
Okay, so setting some limits for ourselves.
Exactly. Maybe designate certain times of day as tech-free zones.
You mean like actually putting the phone down?
Yes. Radical, I know. But seriously, even an hour or two a day can make a difference.
I could see that. It's like giving your brain a break from the constant stimulation,
It is, and it creates space for other things, like face-to-face conversations.
which, let's be honest, can be way more fulfilling.
They can be. You pick up on so much more when you're actually with someone. Their body language, their tone of voice.
All those subtle cues that get lost in a text or an email.
Exactly, and it's in those face-to-face interactions that we build real intimacy and connection.
So maybe instead of texting a friend, we actually pick up the phone and call them.
Or better yet, meet up for coffee or go for a walk together.
I like that. Making time for those real-life encounters.
And when you are using technology to communicate, be present. Put your phone down when you're having dinner with someone. Really listen when someone is talking to you.
It's about quality over quantity, I guess.
You got it. Fewer distractions, more meaningful interactions.
This has been such a great conversation. I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too. It's definitely given me a lot to think about.
I think the key takeaway for me is that even though technology is here to stay, we still have the power to choose how we use it. We don't have to let it dictate how we connect with each other.
I couldn't agree more. At the end of the day, human connection is what truly matters. So let's make sure we're prioritizing those real-life relationships, even in a digital world.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into digital breakups. We hope you've enjoyed this exploration and maybe even found some inspiration for how to navigate your own relationships in this ever-evolving digital landscape. Thanks for listening.